Well, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Elise Rundell and it's a privilege to be here tonight as MC for our panel discussion and to celebrate 5 years of She Creates. Yeah. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the land we meet on and pay my respects to elders past and present. 5 years ago in February 2020, She Creates held its first event, which I'm sure a few of you may have been in attendance at. The idea of She Creates, though, began a lot earlier than this, at an Adelaide Advertising and Design Club meeting with a simple question. How do we bring more women back into the club and into our events? From that conversation, an initiative was born. She Creates started with 5 women who took a chance on an idea, not knowing what it would grow into. Those founding committee members included Tracy Davidson, Jessica Bradley, Taylor Martin, Ella Wood, and of course our current co-chair, Amy Lambert. We're lucky enough to have, I think, 3 out of 5 of them here tonight. Tracy, Taylor, and Amy. Put your hands up. Big cheer for them, please. From all of us, thank you for starting this amazing initiative, which has positively impacted so many of us. Since then, 20 volunteers have put their time and energy outside of their busy lives and jobs into building this community, running events, growing our network beyond the traditional AADC community and creating a place where connection and conversation come first. A few of those women are also in the room tonight, so please raise your hand, past and present committee members. Or down the back, yes. A big cheer for all of them as well. Thank you. So much time, effort and passion goes into creating events like tonight, and you've all helped grow She Creates into what it is today. And of course, none of this would be possible without the sponsors that we've had along our journey as well. A special thanks to our current sponsors, Merlin, who are here tonight filming the event and have been with us from the start. Jessie Shao, our photographer, who's also here tonight. Yeah, keep the applause going, yeah. And Super Studio, who helped us launch our refreshed brand and website last year. Thank you to all of these sponsors and our event sponsors, including McGregor's, where we are tonight, who have all helped us make all of our events possible. So tonight is really keeping true to She Creates. Connection, honest conversation, and sharing personal experiences. And I feel like that's something that we've always done really well. Our panellists are here because they've all forged their own paths in the industry. They've taken leaps of faith, said yes to scary opportunities, and made their mark in different ways. I'd like to introduce them to you. Sarah Luthos, founder and managing director of 10 Past 10 and the current co-president of the AADC. Sarah, love the applause. Thanks. Sarah is a mum of 2 and she knows all about the juggle. Tonight she will share candid insights into purpose, perspective and the lessons learnt while growing a business and a family side by side. Taylor Martin, General Manager of Simple. Taylor has worked her way from account coordinator to General Manager and is a founding member of She Creates and previous co-president of the AADC. Very good. Taylor continues to champion culture, people and creativity in the industry that she loves. Nicola Phillips, Creative Director at Fuller. Nicola has worked with global brands such as MasterCard, Toyota and Audi, and she's even judged at the Cannes Lion. She is recognised for her creative leadership, mentoring and commitment to diversity in advertising. Francesca Germanis, freelance graphic designer and art director. Fran has created memorable brand work for clients such as Yochi Frozen Yogurt, the Woody and Wildfire Shoes for Studio Fran. She brings a fresh, personality-packed approach to branding and design. And then there's me, Elise Rundell. It's a bit weird doing her intro. I'm the studio operations manager at Studio 9 Architects and co-chair of She Creates. I joined the She Creates committee back in 2021 because I wanted to connect and learn from peers outside of my workplace. And it feels like a really nice full circle moment guiding your panel discussion tonight. So I think we've already welcomed everyone, but let's do that again. So, since we're celebrating 5 years of She Creates, it feels only right to start by looking back. I know for me, 2020 felt like a pivotal year of change. I was running marketing solo at Studio 9 Architects. I just turned 30, and this is going to sound totally cliche, but I felt like things just started to click. Joining She Creates the following year was a really eye-opening experience for me, and I'm so glad that I did it. I joined wanting to learn from others, which I did, but I think what the experience really gave me was a newfound confidence and opportunity. Confidence that I did actually know something, and opportunity to learn new skills that I wouldn't have been able to do in my day-to-day job. And these have been experiences that I've been able to bring back into my role at Studio 9 and has helped me to progress, and recently now step into a new role as the ops manager for the company. I'd love to know from all of you, what were you up to 5 years ago and how your journey has evolved to today? Sarah, I'll start with you.
Okay, so 5 years ago, I had a newborn baby at home and a 1.5-year-old as well. And then my third baby was my business, 10 past 10, which was 3 years old at the time. So I guess I was on my second year of maternity leave in as many years, which meant that I'd spent just about as much time working outside the business as I had in the business, which was challenging because I wanted to grow the business. I didn't want to give that up, but I did want to be there for my kids. You can't give that time, get that time back, which we all know. So it just meant that I guess naps were spent replying to emails, and I took the kids to meetings, and it wasn't too bad because we had made, I guess, the decision when I went on maternity leave the first time to get someone to take on my day-to-day role. So it wasn't like I was speaking to clients, it was just driving the business forward and growing the business. So, the balance was pretty good, I guess. When I look back, I don't know that I'd do it again. Don't do that. But it was good, and it did teach me the importance of surrounding yourself with good people that even know more than you and can teach you things. And that person that was taking on my day-to-day role is still in the business, and we did manage to grow it in that time. So that was me 5 years ago, I think.
Can you go a little bit further back than 5 years for me, Taylor?
I actually had to go on my LinkedIn to work out what I was doing 5 years ago.
Well, because how many years have you been in the industry now?
I started at Simple 8 years and 6 months ago, according to my LinkedIn.
Let's start
Terrible
there then.
memory.
I know that's not what we were doing, but I think that's important for the story.
Yeah, so I studied design at uni, got to the end of my course, didn't want to be a designer. Loved creativity, didn't want to be a designer. I worked at Chibo after working at Boost Juice for about a decade, and I thought I'd graduated to hot drinks. And but I was learning a lot. I was kind of running a couple of stores there and just loving life, and I guess I knew I always wanted to pay off my HECS debt in the industry that I had built it in. So I started at Simple 8.5 years ago, let's round it down, in the role of account coordinator. So by the time 5 years ago kind of came to fruition, I'd worked my way to studio manager, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some point tonight. But yeah, I think it was 2020 or October 2020, we were navigating COVID, dare I say the C word. I remember I had no idea what I was doing, expected to kind of step into a new role, which I'd asked for and kind of worked for, and was navigating just a really strange period of time. So I didn't know what I was doing in October 2020, to put it honestly, and I still don't.
I don't think any of us really knew what was happening that year. And Nicola, you weren't here in Adelaide, were you?
I was not.
No.
I'm quite a recent immigrant to Adelaide. Only been here coming up 2 years. 5 years ago, I was very pregnant with my second child. It was still COVID in Sydney, which the only benefit was I was able to hide my pregnancy from my work for quite some time. Basically, until they figured it out in the end. When I brought my son in, they kind of figured it out. At the time I was working at M&C Saatchi, so big Sydney ad agency, working on mainly Woolworths, so big accounts. And it was really tough. COVID had made it really tough. We were working, honestly, 7 days a week, like we were on call. It didn't stop. We had a little cabin up in the mountains outside of Sydney, and the only time I really felt happy and comfortable was kind of there. And so what did happen 5 years ago is it set in motion the thought process that eventually brought me to here, which was starting to ask some really big questions about careers are great, but you've got to think about what's happening around your career. And so I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but that was definitely the scene for me. One kid on the way, COVID, big job, trying to figure out what's next.
And Fran, how did 2020 compare to now?
Well, 5 years ago, I had just graduated uni in the midst of COVID, which was fantastic. Looking for a first job in the industry, also really good during COVID. I was applying for a bunch of jobs, a bunch of whatever, even if they didn't classify as a graphic designer role. I applied for this job that said junior art director, and I said, well, I don't really know what a junior art director is. We didn't really learn about that in uni for some reason, but I applied because the job description kind of sounded like that's what I do. So I applied and I ended up getting the job at Showpony, and that was my first job in the industry, which was an eye-opener, I guess, because I didn't know about advertising or anything like that in uni. I didn't know that you could get a job like that. And it was a really good learning experience. I learned a lot there. I learned a lot about the industry, which, like I said, I didn't know much about. And I managed to get a job during COVID, which was pretty unreal. I ended up getting made redundant there, unfortunately, after a year, but that obviously led me to other things, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. So, that's where I was 5 years ago.
Thank you. I think what we've all experienced is that careers don't necessarily go in a straight line. It's not really about climbing a ladder anymore sometimes. It might be about sideways step or a change in lifestyle or following unexpected opportunities. I think for me, it's been more about growing out rather than up a lot of the time. But I'm sort of keen to know from you guys how that sort of played out for you and how your career has gone. So Fran, I think we can go back to you and talk us through how that journey from that junior art director role to now, and then freelancing as well.
Like I said, I was unfortunately made redundant after a big redundancy at Showpony, which was a bit of a shock because I thought only old people got made redundant. And I was still young.
It's very common.
And so I actually managed to get into award school while I was still at Showpony in between that time of redundancy and whatever. And award school was a really big eye-opener for, networking as well as the moving forward creatively, like expanding my horizons and things like that, doing more than just graphic design but thinking about advertising as an idea. And I ended up coming second in SA, which was pretty cool. And then I moved on from Showpony to them advertising, and I was there for a little bit. And they asked me, do you want to go freelance? And I said, I don't know. Okay, why are you asking me a bit of a random question? I never really thought about freelancing like that. I had, thought about it, but I was too scared. I was like, what about the invoices? Who's going to do the invoices? I don't know how to invoice. And, I was stressed about the invoicing rather than anything else. And I said, okay, I'll go freelance. So it kind of kicked off my freelancing career somehow. And I worked out how to do invoicing eventually, thanks to Mum and Dad for helping with my first invoice. And, I wasn't actually worried about the work per se because I thought, well, that will hopefully speak for itself. It was more the admin stuff that was the scary part that, that comes with kind of running your own business, which I've never done before. And I was young and, that was the scariest part, I guess. And now I'm freelancing full time, which is pretty cool. And that my career hasn't really moved in a straight line. I didn't move where I thought I was going to go. I thought I was going to be in a stable job or something like that. I mean, freelancing is somewhat, but, it's freelancing.
Yeah, very different. And Nicola, for you, you touched on this before about lifestyle. Do you think that you sort of chose lifestyle maybe over climbing that ladder per se, or how did that play out, do you think, for you?
It's really hard to say. I sometimes I feel like I'm in a bit of a fever dream. I go, how did I wake up in Sydney and end up in Adelaide, kind of thing. And it was entirely me. I can't act like anyone else did it. I made it happen myself. But I think it's very hard to say exactly when the decision was made or why. But kids made a really big difference for me. But I think it was beyond that, and I think it's very pertinent to talk about this given that this is a room largely filled with women and a couple of male champions. Thank you for coming here, by the way. Shout out to the men in the room. Yeah.
He didn't have a choice.
I know. Oh, okay. You were press ganged. Right. Look, I think what I was really noticing in Sydney was on paper I was doing all the right things, and yet I kept on being passed over by men. And it got to the point where at one point I was the national head of award school, and I had guys who I'd taught award school who were beginning to go past me career-wise. And originally you go, oh, maybe it's because they're better, and then you go, maybe it's not though. Maybe there's a bigger issue here. And so I think from my perspective, in answer to your question, circuitously, yes, I left a very big job and I was a creative director at M&C Saatchi and I was climbing the ranks, but I did always feel that autonomy would be better for me career-wise, and I did see in Adelaide the opportunity to really start fresh. And I think and I'm sure everyone in this room has experienced this, people tend to remember you from your first job. It can be quite hard to mature professionally and to move on. And I think sometimes doing a big move, like changing a city, can really change that perspective. So I think that, for me, I don't think it was a step sideways necessarily, but it was definitely another way to go. It was a way to go. I really want to do something differently, and I really don't want to keep on doing the same thing in the same place and try to look for a different result.
Yeah, I love that. And definitely now at Fuller, perfect place to be.
Thank you. I agree.
And Taylor, I think on paper maybe it might seem like your career has been linear in a way, but would you describe it like that, or how would you sort of talk it through?
I was just listening to you and thinking I'm the exact opposite.
That's so good.
I've been at the same place for 8 years, 6 months, as per LinkedIn, as I discovered today. I think it's been linear in the sense, but I think I'm not where I guess I thought I would be. I think I had a one-on-one 1 year and my director asked me what I want to do, and I think in my mind I was like, I want your job. I don't think I verbalised that.
I should have said it. There's been moments like that when I've been asked that at a previous job, and I'm like, why didn't I just say that? Like, that's funny.
I'm all about stating intentions now, but at the time I was like, I'm going to freak him out. But I think I probably said it in a roundabout word, and I think I've always been really honest about where I guess I wanted to get to. I feel like I'm probably I'm a magpie in a career perspective, where I kind of came into the industry as an account coordinator, didn't really know what that meant, what I wanted to do, where I was going, and I guess I've just been really hungry and really curious to kind of continue learning. So as I learnt more things, I produced TVCs, I brought brands to life, I brought websites to life, and I think through doing everything I kind of worked out what I did and I didn't like. And to be honest, I probably liked all of it, and that's been my biggest downfall. But I think as I grew, I guess I was just open about what I could do and where I could go next. And so I was an account coordinator, became account manager. From that point, I kind of saw an opportunity with the agency just to, have someone who kind of sat at the heart of it. At that point, Simple was growing, the team was growing, the problems that came along with a growing team were growing, and I kind of guess I wanted to do something more without changing agency. To your point, I think, that you can kind of go and change and get a change in being somewhere different, but for me, I knew I was where I wanted to be. I just wanted to be doing something different within that team. So I really kind of put forward a job role for studio manager. I remember being like, I would love to do this, but I don't have to do this. It doesn't have to be me. And I had their full endorsement, I guess. So I took on that role, and here we are, I guess. So linear, but also not linear, but probably linear, I think, is the answer.
And how about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I think I've taken a few side steps. I started an agency. I never wanted to work for in advertising. I did one advertising subject in uni, and I'm like, that's not for me. I wanted to be an editor of a magazine, which is probably good that I wasn't now. So I started as a junior copywriter, and then account coordinator, account manager, worked in agency and in the same agency for about 7 years. And then my husband got a job in Sydney. And so we moved to Sydney, and I was like, great opportunity to get out and not deal with clients anymore. I'm going to client side. So I went to client side. Well, I worked for a startup for 3 months, which was absolute hell. And I would... I was trying to market something, and every day my boss would come in, he's like, we're pivoting. I was like, what am I marketing? But I did learn that, that was the first time I'd ever disliked my job, and I learnt so much about the fact that, your job brings you so much happiness, and it affected every facet of my life. And so then I got out of there and I was like, no, I think client service is for me. I'm going back to agency. But I got a job in a beautiful studio there, and there was about 6 of them at the time. I was their first ever account, they were all creatives. They didn't have an account manager. I think now they have 6 or 8 account managers, so I like to think that maybe I showed them there was some value in that. But I was in the background starting to set up my own business, which was probably a bit of a shit move, taking that job on, really, knowing that I was going to leave them. But I just think that, those little diversions helped me realise what I wanted. So I think that the whole not going linear thing has worked for me, because it made me I probably would have wondered if I would have been better on client side or something like that. So it's made me appreciate what I have now, I think.
Well, I think some of the biggest growth moments for me have been saying yes to things that scared me. So saying yes to leading She Creates, pitching a new role to my company, or actually even just sitting here tonight as MC. It was Amy's bright idea for me to MC the event, and I've been freaking out a little bit about it ever since. But you just don't know when these opportunities are going to come up again, so just go with them, right? I think we've all had opportunities like that have come about, and I'd love us all to share a little bit. I might actually go back to you, Sarah, because that opportunity to start your own business, tell us a little bit more about how that happened.
So that was about the time I moved to Sydney. One of the guys that I worked with in the agency that I'd left in Adelaide, him and I had always joked about starting our own thing, doing better things one day. And then I left, and I was like, I'll never see you again. And then when I was in bye. Then I was in Sydney, and in my startup role, there were some things. He's very good at digital stuff, and I wasn't so good at that. And I was calling him a bit, and he's like, maybe we need each other to work together. And so we started sort of joking around with the idea of starting our own agency, coming up with names, things like that. And then one day he was like, yep, I quit. So you're doing it too, and this is happening, which was terrifying, because we just moved to Sydney. Our rent was ridiculous, as you would know, Nicola. My husband and I needed us both to be earning an income to pay for the place we were living in. And all of a sudden I was... trying to support myself. So that was...
And this is starting an agency with someone in Adelaide.
Yes.
So not in the same state.
No, I was in Sydney, he was in Adelaide. I can't work from home because I eat too much. I always go to the kitchen. So I had to hire an office straight away, which was a big cost as well. So I still can't work from home for that reason. I can't be trusted. I guess that was terrifying, but paid off. And then I guess, to your point, the AADC as well.
Yes, tell us a little bit about being asked to be co-pres. That opportunity. Yeah,
so that was a shock. I was on the committee, but, the
stand out on the committee, by the way.
Oh, thanks. PK said to me, I want to talk to you. This was at the awards last year, and he said, would you consider being co-president? I was like, is he talking to me? And then I went home and freaked out that night. I didn't sleep that night. But I know that, opportunity, you have to say yes to opportunities. When we started the agency, like my motto was, great things never come from comfort zones. I didn't make that up. It was a quote seen on Pinterest, but I really spend a lot of time pinning quotes. I'm one of those people. I don't have any quotes up in my house. I'm not that bad.
Thank you for that.
I know that you don't regret the things you do. So I knew that opportunity wouldn't come again, just like study business, and so I had to take it. And both of those things have been the best things that have happened to me professionally. So.
Yeah, I remember us having a conversation when you've been asked and chatting about it, and it's so true. Like, what if you're not asked again?
Yeah.
Just figure it out after, hey?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Hope to hell that you make it work.
Yeah, and saying to your husband, like, oh yeah, I wasn't going to do this, but now I'm doing the big job.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was the thing. Like, I don't think I've told any PK this, but I was probably going to get out of the committee. And then he was like, yeah, do you want to... and
Get right in there.
Yeah, that's right. And then I was like, okay, yeah, let's give this a go. So I'm glad I didn't get out anyway, but yeah.
And Taylor, I mean, similar experience for you in a way, but also being asked to be co-president of the AADC, sorry. And correct me if I'm wrong, and we shouldn't give everyone's age away, but how old were you at the time?
I think I was 27.
I thought so.
Yeah.
So 27 and being asked to be the co-pres, I think that's pretty incredible.
It was huge. I think I was just going to say I've made some deals at the awards at about 4 o'clock in the morning to stay on committees, and I don't promote doing that. So I'm glad that you did it when you were sober, because I've stayed on the awards committee for a few years, mainly because I've handshaken it at the after party. You can't go back. I think when I started with the club, I started in the role of club secretary, which was the same as where you started. I was 6 months into Simple when I did so. I was sober when I agreed to do so as well. It wasn't at the awards. And when I first got asked by Jamie Scott from Show Pony, I think at the time my gut feeling was no. I guess Jamie was co-president with James Rickard. James Rickard had been in the role for about 3 years. He is an incredible person. He is an incredible business person. And he's an incredible voice for the club. And I guess at that point I saw myself as replacing him, and I didn't think I could be him, do what he did, talk on radio about business matters. Like, that just wasn't me. And so when Jamie first asked me, I think I was like, maybe in the future, not today. And then he actually gave me some really kind words. Jamie kind of said, you can make this role to whatever you be. You don't have to be the business leader. You can kind of shape the club in whatever direction you see fit. And I think those words really helped me, because in that moment it was a firm no, and I think it turned to a firm yes as well, knowing that I didn't have to be James, I could be Taylor, and that was okay as well. So that was very scary. But I think that, he asked me and he saw something in me, and that's probably all I needed. I just needed like one little second of like, no, you can do it. And I'd be like, okay, let's do it. And it was a really big turning point. I remember when the press release came out, I was absolutely shitting bricks knowing that was about to go out. And I remember one of my directors messaged me and said, you look like a mob boss in that photo. And I think that's probably all.
You look so confident.
Dude, red jacket.
I know the photo.
I was like, those are the kindest words you could say to someone looking like a mob boss. So after that moment, I guess, I think what I've realised is I'm terrible at saying no. I'm very good at saying yes. And sometimes you just need a little bit of encouragement to actually say the words, even if you're feeling them under the surface. So yeah, it's been awesome. I forget your question totally. What was it?
Saying yes to opportunities.
Yes.
So yes, you answered. I think with that as well, you're always kind of, you can't wait for someone else to advocate for you as well. You kind of just have to do that for yourself. So not waiting to be asked, making that happen, putting yourself out there, and then making sure that you take that opportunity. So
yeah, and if you totally fuck it up, that's okay as well.
Yes.
And I guess I have a big belief that things will always work out. It will be okay. What's the worst you can do? And to be honest, I think it's all been okay, so it's okay. Good
Fran,
English.
You touched a little bit on this before, but starting Studio Fran would have been a really big step. to really put yourself out there publicly and, beyond the invoicing. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about, how you sort of did that and, built your brand really.
Yeah, I think it was unintentional to actually start myself as a brand. I thought, I'll just call myself, my name, and just people will hire me for my name. But then my Instagram started kind of taking off. People were finding me on there, and it was called Studio Fran. And then everyone started calling me Studio Fran. And it was actually unintentional, the way that it started. And, in saying yes to opportunities and things like that, I was worried about how I was going to get my first clients and things like that. I didn't know how to go about it, but it was funny because I had previously applied for a job at Wildfire Shoes. It wasn't really a job that was a graphic design role. It was kind of like something along those lines. But I applied anyway, and I did the interview, and I didn't get the job, and I was like, oh man, that sucks. But a year later, they actually reached out to me and said, do you want to do some freelance work for us? So since then, I've been doing their, EDMs, their influencer stationary events sort of thing. So from saying yes initially to getting a no to then getting a yes. So I guess some opportunities you say yes to, but you don't think that's what you're going to get from it. So I guess you do have to say yes to some things. And it actually happened a second time as well. I applied for a job. I didn't get the job, but the hiring manager remembered me as she moved to the Woody, and that's how I got to freelancing at the Woody. And that was for quite a while as well. That was for about 8 months I was freelancing at the Woody, which was pretty crazy. So, I said yes, I got a no, and then I got a yes again. So maybe I'm memorable, I don't know. But there is something about me maybe. I'm doing something right. And and even on Instagram and things like that, I don't post heaps of stuff, but I post every now and then, and that's how Yochi found me, through Instagram. I hadn't really been posting that much at that time, but, they filled in my form that I had. I was like, well, yes, heaps professional, fill it in. And, I saw Yochi on there. I was like, no, that's not real. That's not real. And I was like, hey, it is real. I did like a FaceTime with them and a Zoom. I was like, whoa, okay. And they're still a client now, even though those two girls that hired me have left. They've kept me on. So we're working together still, which is good, touch wood. And even though, even if it's just as small as posting on Instagram, that's an opportunity, that's a yes to that opportunity. So if it's not necessarily like an obvious opportunity, but, I think I've been saying yes to things without realising, and it's gotten me where I am now.
Definitely. Nicola, I'm sure you have a lot that you could share here about opportunities that have come along the way.
Well, funnily enough, I kind of did the Sydney version of what we've already talked about, which was very fortunately the award committee, which is sort of, Australia-wide but based normally in Sydney, they had traditionally been very male-oriented, and for a beautiful short period they had a very visionary president who said, this isn't right, we need to get more women on the committee. And he basically said to the committee, he explained this in retrospect, he didn't trust them to pick the right women. So he basically opened it up to the whole industry and said, send in your applications, tell us why you should be on this committee. And so I went, what the hell, I'll go for it. And ended up getting a spot on the committee. And then very similar, really, it was a matter of saying yes to things. So very early on, as I've already said, I was kind of disappointed by sexism in the industry. There was a really bad statistic going around at the moment that only 1 in 10 creative directors was female. And that really bothered me, being on the path to being a creative director. So I pitched to Award that we should start a mentoring program for female creatives called The Power of 10, which we set up. So we ran The Power of 10 for a while, which was basically the concept that you get 10 up-and-coming female creatives in a room with one female creative who, if she hasn't broken through, she's very close. And basically you kind of do some group mentoring. And so that led to, funnily enough, to award school. Interestingly, a number of the guys sort of couldn't be bothered doing the admin necessary for award school, so they said, who wants to run award school? And I put my hand up. And I didn't know what I was doing, but put my hand up. And then it kind of went from there. And the weirdest part was that out of the blue, having set up some award pop-up events and sort of gone out and done a little mini award school for suits and all kinds of things, the Cannes Lions contacted me and went, we've found you through these networks. And
They contacted you
They
directly?
contacted me.
Wow, okay.
Yes. And honestly, at this point, all the guys go, yeah, well, you know, lucky you're a woman. And the truth is, yeah, you're right. And I got that a lot. I had a number of male colleagues go, you do realise that you were more obvious because you were a woman. And I went, yeah, but conversely, I've also missed out on a lot because I'm a woman. And despite the fact that I was there going, how am I going to not be exposed internationally? I said yes. And so power of saying yes. What was amazing was actually going there and being in a jury of 21 designers all around the world and going, no, I am going to speak up and I'm going to tell people what I think, and actually finding that people were really respectful and they did listen and that they did actually value me with, you know, where I was coming from and my folio. And I think that was a big learning experience for me. So I think consistently saying yes and putting myself out there in the industry made a huge difference. It was a real turning point for me.
Can you just to stay on Cannes Lion for a second, just for those that don't know, maybe a bit of context on what that awards program is? And I've heard that it's also very, like there's a heated debate for a number of days. Is that right?
Correct,
jury?
yeah. It depends what jury you're on. When I was there, so I was on the design jury, we were locked down for 8 days, and I mean locked down. You know, you put up in a very small hotel room.
Like a trial for murder or something.
And it was a lot, yeah. It's very similar to the Mushroom Case Daily Trial. It's mad actually. You turn up on day one and you're given a whole lot of swag, and that includes like a fluffy blanket. And everyone goes, "What's the deal with a fluffy blanket?" Turns out it's because the room is really cold, and you're going to be there for 20 hours a day, and so you got to wrap yourself in the blanket to not die of exposure. And but basically, if you can imagine like a room the size of a football field full of everyone's design samples from around the world, and you start by working your way around the room, and then the next day some of the stuff is missing, and then so on and so forth. It's like just Survivor for design. And by the last couple of days, actually it was a bit heartbreaking, to be honest, because I missed out on seeing Fatboy Slim simply because I was locked up in a room. All my workmates who were there were going, "Are you at this party? This is amazing." I was like, no, I'm actually locked in a room looking at design. But it was absolutely incredible. It was just so intense, and you get so deeply immersed, and you learn so much about the world, in a way both good and bad. Like, I think the other thing I would say about Cannes Lions is you do realise that there can be a bit of corruption, a bit of sort of game playing behind the scenes in the world of international awards, but you also realise that there are just as many good ideas that are coming out of Bolivia than coming out of London, but we don't really always get to hear about them, so that was really interesting too.
Yeah, super interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to move on to leadership. I think it's a big transition that a career can go through, from being one of the team to then being the person in charge or with some authority. Taylor, how did you figure out what sort of leader you wanted to be, and how did you change from, you know, that account coordinator to then studio manager and then GM? How have you kind of transitioned along the way?
I've never really done a leadership course. Actually, I'm doing one at the moment, but it's not really a leadership course. It's actually quite good. But I think I've always just kind of been who I wanted to be and have been, and I've really struggled to kind of, you know, you read blogs and LinkedIn posts and all this stuff, and they tell you should be one thing or you should be another thing, and I think I've always just thought, you know, I am who I am, and I back myself that I'm where I am because of who I am. Those words came out really eloquently.
That's great.
I could never say that again. But I think in saying that, I think the biggest experience for me has literally just been being in conversations that are not easy for the person I'm speaking to and not easy for myself. You know, being in conversations where I don't necessarily want to be in them, but I think as long as I stay true to who I am, you know, act with empathy and kind of think of the other person on the end of that conversation, even if it's a tough one, that has just taught me so much. So I guess, yeah, just being exposed to things that I never thought I would be exposed to, being part of She Creates and a part of the ADC as well, I think naturally has just given me soft skills that I guess I never thought I would have. I think, standing up on stage, I'm still terrified, but I guess being on there, I've just learned so much, and I think you learn so much about yourself when you just are put in a moment, you have to deal with it, and you don't have a decision as to whether you're going through it or not. And I think, just getting through it. And I think what I've learned is I've spoken to so many different people in so many different roles now, people who are leaders, people who aren't leaders, but everyone who I guess I've seen who has really kind of reached the top of an organisation has just kind of stayed true to themselves, I guess. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's not perfect, but I'm trying. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. And Sarah, you're the managing director of your company. How has that been sort of being balancing being the boss and then also having a team as well?
Yeah, I think that I've never really thought about being a leader, but I guess my style is leading from the trenches. If I expect my team to do it, then I can do it too. And I think that's just we all roll up our sleeves, and that's where you set the energy and the pace and the expectations. And so that's really important to me, I guess, just setting those examples, and then just helping people find their potential, and then just just potential everywhere, I guess, just potential in processes and things like that, thinking through things and learning to have those tough conversations. I'm a people pleaser. That doesn't come naturally to me at all. And even this week I had to have one for ages. Someone has this is OCD, but people in this industry will get it. I had to tell someone for ages that they'd been writing everything with a hyphen, and it should be an N dash or an M dash, and and it just got to me, and I was like, why didn't I have this conversation earlier? Why did I let it get to this point? And that was really hard for me to say.
If that's the worst of it, that's okay.
I was like, that's easy.
See, I told you I'm a people pleaser and I need to work on that. So, not perfect.
I actually have a quote for you.
Yeah, please.
I'm not a quote person. I think you are. But I read this thing once and it was about leadership, and it basically said there are two types of leaders. One of them is on top of the train as it comes past and it's waving to everyone, and the other person is kind of in the coal room shoveling the coal, doing the work.
That's what I like to think I am.
Yeah, and I guess that resonated with me, and that's why I remembered it. So apart from live, laugh, love, that's the only quote I remember.
I'll share my board with you. I might get some inspiration.
But I think I've just seen, I guess I've seen in myself, I'm the coal shoveler, but I've seen other people around me, and there's no right or wrong, but I think the people that I resonate with are the coal shovelers, and maybe that's why we get along so much.
Yeah, I agree completely.
I also want to ask you about stepping into the role of co-chair, because I know that you said that you had a real fear of public speaking. And I'd love for you to share how you got over that, because I'm still thinking about that.
I'm embarrassed to say, but
I love it.
I feel like I completely cheated on this one, but it worked a treat. So one of my friends many years ago did this and suggested it to me, and I was like, I'm okay. But then when I was asked to be co-pres, that was the thing that scared me the most. Getting up in front of awards, where there's 400 people or whatever in the room, and I was just like,
acting out at the awards, doing a role play.
I forgot that I was co-pres with a massive extrovert, and then I had to do a skit. Exactly. But
they were dressed up. It was a lot. It was awesome.
I was like, I draw the line at singing. It's not happening. But so my cheat that anyone can do is I got hypnotised. The best $200 I have ever spent, one session, and I walked out of there, I had tears just streaming down my face, and he's like, you're not going to need to see me again. I'm like, no, you've given me the greatest gift ever, and since then I have honestly really enjoyed public speaking. I mean, hopefully it came across, but at the awards, which was the thing I was most scared about, I loved being up on stage. I wasn't nervous beforehand, and I had practiced it during the year, But yeah, that was my hack.
Love that. This is a podcast. I'd say that the hypnotist should be in the show notes.
Yeah,
You can share that around. I would like the details.
Yep, I'll give anyone his details happily. Funny story. I went to buy my dog food recently, and I noticed that the person next door was my hypnotist, and he's moved from Glenelg where I went, and the person that owned the dog food store, I was like, oh, is Craig next door? Like, he saved my life. And she was like, that's my husband. She's like, Craig, come in here. And I'm like, Craig, I love you. He's like, okay. So, yeah.
Very Adelaide.
Yeah, that's all right.
You mentioned before, Nicola, about the lack of creative director role models, as females, I should say. Who has sort of guided you to become the leader that you are today?
Yeah, good question. Look, the answer is actually, funnily enough, some of the people who we connected with when we set up the female mentoring program have since then become massive international creative directors, and that's people like Tara Ford, who, if you don't know about her, look her up. She's exceptional. But so there were people like that. But what was really interesting, my unexpected champion was someone who absolutely terrified me, and he was a he. He was one of the founders of M&C Saatchi, and to be honest, I think he is about to turn 80, and he was incredibly old-fashioned and sexist. Like, he was really a madman. And he always passed me by and never gave me time of day. And then I started this mentoring program. I went, I actually have to go and talk to him because I feel like he might be the problem and therefore, conversely, the solution. And so I went and I spoke to his EA, and I managed to get into his office, and we had a out-and-out fight for about 5 minutes, and he was very, very unresponsive to what I was saying. And then I said to him, look, I've got to be honest, this is where I'm coming from. This is the situation. There's only 1 in 10 female creative directors. You can't tell me honestly that you think that female creatives are less good than male creatives. Can we actually have a conversation about it? Like, can we talk? Can you help me understand what's going on? And I can't even tell you what we talked about after that, but the weirdest thing was he turned around and he became my mentor. And he became such a powerful mentor that we had a lovely International Women's Day event in Sydney where I think maybe Adobe put on a big fancy lunch, and they said, women, bring your female mentors. And I went, no, I'm bringing my male mentor. So Tom was the only man in the room. And he rose to the occasion to such a massive degree, and he had become such a passionate feminist. And all it took was actually an honest conversation and just, I think, me being brave enough, and I didn't feel brave at the time, but just to have the conversation and just say, this is the way I'm feeling, and do you really think that women are less good than men? Like, is that really what you think? And that was a real unlock. And so, yeah, he really championed me from there. Honestly, the promotions that I got from there weren't directly to do with him, but indirectly he was there pushing from behind the scenes and giving me the confidence.
That's great. Fran, have you had anyone sort of along the way? I mean, you've worked, obviously, freelance at a lot of different agencies, and anyone that's sort of become a mentor for you, or you've seen different leadership styles that you have liked?
Interesting.
Or that you haven't liked?
I think the thing with being freelance is that you have to be able to adapt to all these different types of styles of workplaces and leadership and things like that. Some creative directors are more hands-on, some will kind of let you do your own thing. So I think each style has its merit, I think. There's not one I particularly like or don't like. But I guess I have to be my own leader as well, which I don't know if I do a good job or not, but I think it's difficult to say because I'm always jumping in and out of stuff, and I have to be able to adapt to things. So I think that's the most important part, is being able to adapt as a freelancer specifically. Yeah, definitely.
Something that often doesn't get spoken about openly enough is balance. So building a career, growing a family, and avoiding burnout. Balance is something that I think we all wrestle with, particularly within the creative industry, and that sort of that follows through to architecture as well. That work is sort of never done and can keep going. I've got a 3-year-old, Hugo, who's amazing. And I would probably liken parenthood to a roller coaster that you never get off. And there's twists and turns along the way, but I kind of just feel like I just went through the first loop-de-loop of the roller coaster. The journey through pregnancy, newborn phase, maternity leave, and then coming back to work, so rewarding, but really challenging as well. And I was starting to feel back to my normal self and, found a balance that was sort of working. And, you feel like you sort of come out the other side. I'm now pregnant with my second child, and I feel like I'm about to get on the new roller coaster and do it all again. And it feels quite different this time as well, just as I'm sort of starting to get into a new role as well. So I'm selfishly wanting to ask this question to Sarah and Nicola first, but how do you you're both mothers of two. What can you share and what advice do you have for me and for everyone else on how do you build a career and a business while raising children?
First?
Yeah, sure.
This is the hardest question of the lot, isn't it? So, look, I don't have a right. Some days you think you do and some days you don't. Some days, you just think you're failing at everything or good at one and good at the other. This morning, another embarrassing one, I guess. But I was doing my daughter's hair and, that she didn't make it easy. She's got to be playing Barbie. She can't just stand up. But she's playing Barbies while I'm doing her hair. She wants a specific hairstyle, like one of her favourite characters, and I'm trying to do it. And she's got Barbie and she's got Chelsea, and Chelsea says, Mum, will you come play with me? And Barbie goes, no, I've got to do some chores, and then reply to some emails. And I was like, oh, I know. Oh my God. I'm like, oh shit. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm off to work. Exactly. And I like to think I'm teaching her, the value of hard work, but maybe she'll look back and be like, I don't know, Mum was never there. I don't think that's the case. I really do try to prioritize the kids, and also my husband, poor thing, he sort of sometimes becomes a last priority, and I do try to make a concerted effort there too, but the balance is not perfect, and I don't know if anyone, maybe everyone does, but gets the perfect balance. But it's making time to, I find any time away from technology is good. Just I always feel a sense of relief on Fridays. So okay, clients aren't going to bother me, no one's going to bother me, this is family time now. And so just reminding myself that sometimes you don't need to be checking your phone all the time, and I feel better the longer I'm away from technology, and just learning to say no as well, which people pleaser me once again doesn't do that very well. This year I was asked to be P&F rep for both my kids' classes. I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. I should have said no. Or my friend needed some cookies done for her son's first birthday. I said, I like decorating cookies, I'll do that. And then at 2 a.m. I'm making cookies, which happens to me a lot, actually. So bake sales and things. So, I just need to learn to, I think that's a goal of mine, to learn to say no and try and get that balance right. Family is first, you're doing everything for the family, and you need to put that in perspective, I think. I don't have the answer.
I hear you. I run a cafe at my daughter's school every second Friday, and why? You've answered that one so well. I'm going to go a totally different way. I'm lucky now because I feel like Fuller is families are very central to the way people think at Fuller. So the great news is I haven't really had to do any of this, what I'm about to describe, while I've been at Fuller. But the way I used to do it at M&C Saatchi, which was not a family-friendly agency, is, and this is going to sound very manipulative, so go with me. At certain key moments, I would make my children visible. And that would be because, for example, I might have worked till 10 multiple days on a Christmas campaign or something like that, and it would reach the point where it was the final time and we'd be in an audio studio and we'd be due there at 8 o'clock at night. So I would bring my daughter. And she would be good as gold. I would make sure that there was a fresh dolly for her to play with. She would never cause any problems, but that was actually deliberate, that I would be there going, these are my children. my child in that case, but I would take both of them for weekend work sometimes. They're fine, they're well behaved, but you need to be aware that they exist. And I think that's actually, I think hiding the struggle can create further problems. So I think just being honest and just saying, these are the real little human beings that are out there. I will do, I will move heaven and earth. And I do.
Say murder.
No, I will not murder.
I will murder for them.
I might murder for a chocolate cake or something like that, but no, I won't murder. I will move heaven and earth to make everything work, but you do have to be aware that these are the real little human beings here. So I think definitely don't be afraid, and I think when you're negotiating around being a parent, be very honest about what you need to do to be a good parent. And then on the home front, I'm a hot mess. I mean, a lot of the times there's not the healthiest meals and it's a really big mess and the children scream. I prioritise love. At the end of the day, I go, I just want to make sure that my kids know I really love them, but conversely, they also know that I really love my job and they understand that I have a job. Because I think the other pitfall you can fall into is hiding it from your kids, conversely as well. So I kind of try and do that as well.
I love what you said about Fuller being, understanding about family, and I think that makes such a huge difference, a workplace that gets it. And for me, that flexibility that my workplace has given me to be able to have a child and, maybe I'm not there at particular times, but they know I'm going to get the work done. And I think that also came from being there for a few years before and earning that trust and everything. But I would not give that up compared to anything else. That's number one priority for me, I think, definitely. And Taylor and Fran, sort of from a perspective of burnout, how have you guys sort of managed taking on extra loads? Fran, I know that you sometimes freelance in the day, then got your own work as well, and Taylor, a big job that you've stepped into as well. How have you guys managed that?
Do you want I can? Okay. We haven't rehearsed this. I think coming back to the yes thing, I say yes to everything. I had a moment, my partner Lindsay is here, about a week out from the awards, where our fridge was full of jelly because I thought it'd be a great idea to have 300 jellies at the awards. The jellies didn't work.
There were no jellies.
And my ChatGPT history is full of how firm to make jelly water to jelly ratio. So I burned myself out in ways that are probably not relevant to anyone else's life except for the detriment of my own. But I think really I do things because I love them. I spend time because I love doing what I do. And I think burnout it's hard, and I've certainly been at points where I've said to my directors, I need to go for a walk around the block because I'm not okay. And it's been really hard, but I always feel like voicing that in that moment has made me feel so much better. They don't have a solution for me sometimes, but they, at least I feel like the problem is shared and the problem is halved in that moment as well. So I don't have the answer. I'm terrible. I'm probably a high functioning burnout person, but I honestly think that taking on so much has actually helped me get to where I am, so I'm probably not a good advocate for this.
It's a hard one because I completely agree, you have to put in that hard work as well and then finding that balance. But I agree with what you said about voicing how you're feeling, and you're not often looking for a solution because most of the time they might be feeling the same way as well, the person you're talking to, or they don't know either, but voicing it at least and talking through it, that just kind of gets the weight lifted off your shoulders. Hey?
Absolutely. I had a moment about 6 weeks ago where I pulled one of my directors into a room and I absolutely just I just needed to say what I was feeling in that moment. I was feeling particularly stressed about something, and he just looked at me. He was like, I don't know how to help you.
But you felt better.
But in that moment I was like, I feel so much better about just saying this, and then everything was fine. So I think that I'm a big advocate for telling my team, do not sit at your desk and fester because it will bottle up. It will get worse and it does not help anyone or anything. So I think just voicing, sharing, there's never a solution. Well, there's not always a solution. Sometimes there is a solution, but they will help you in a way even if they don't have immediate access to help as well.
How about you, Fran?
Yeah, so I guess with freelancing, I do tend to overwork, but the good thing about freelancing is that you can have a good work-life balance in some cases. Look, I do, freelance during the day at a studio or something like that, and I kind of book myself, but and then I work at night on other projects and things like that. But I feel that I don't get burnt out because I do have the opportunity to travel and things like that. So I try and work myself to the bone before I go away somewhere, and at least have things in a somewhat, good place before I go, and then I can just chip away at it while I go away. So I think that avoids the burnout issue. I haven't felt burnt out yet, even though I do work hard. But maybe I just enjoy it. I don't know. Maybe I enjoy the work too much. I love what I do, so it doesn't feel like hard work to me. I just like being creative, and I do have some other creative outlets that I kind of enjoy as well, which helps my work. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird. I don't know.
It definitely makes a difference, but I think having something to look forward to, like a trip, also makes a big difference too.
I look forward to scrolling on TikTok.
Just that moment on the couch and like
Watching Love is Blind.
and like Nat and I are in silence, and you're just like no talking, just scrolling. Definitely. The creative industry moves so quickly, I think, as we've sort of talked on a little bit, but we've seen a lot of change even in the last 5 years. New platforms, new expectations, new ways of working, and new technologies. And it feels like we always have to adapt. How do each of you keep up with the momentum and stay relevant when that change never stops? Nicola, maybe you can start, because I feel like over your career journey you would have seen a lot of change, particularly like maybe in the space of social media as well. That wouldn't have been part of a campaign before, but now is.
Yeah, good question. Funnily enough, back to my madman mentor, Tom, almost 80.
Yes, this would be very different for him.
Yeah, and but what was interesting was, because I had a chat about this with him many years ago, and he said to me, he thinks that advertising is just all about people. And I went, oh yeah, okay. And I had to think about that for probably about 5 years. But actually it's really wise what he said, because at the end of the day, obviously mediums change, approaches change. People's attention spans are absolutely appalling these days. They were better before, I think, slightly. But basically he just goes, at the end of the day, we are all human beings, and we need to think about every single person who we're communicating to as a human being, and think about all of the things that are going on in their lives and all the things that they value and their preoccupations, and that if we always come back to those human beings and solve the problem for them, it'll probably work. And the funny thing is it's so deceptively simple, but I think it's true. And I think, honestly, all of these things that are currently happening, and I think AI is going to be really interesting, because I go, again, my counter to AI is I think human beings are actually going to become more valuable than ever before. I think the answer might come back to human beings again. AI is a great tool, but as human beings, we're looking for connections. And so I think if we can all kind of keep humans at the centre of what we do, I think we'll probably be okay, and we'll be able to kind of ride whatever wave comes.
Anyone else want to share? How about for you, Fran? Oh, yeah, go. And I might ask you as well about, so say like you were mentioning before with your business and putting yourself out there on Instagram, and some work has come from that. How have you kind of felt like you've built that up? Because I know you've done some other content as well about you, not necessarily always about your work too.
Again, somewhat unintentional. Obviously, like most of the things I do, but I don't know. I haven't been very good at it this year, but I think trying to stay somewhat true to myself, as cringy as that sounds. Following a trend to some degree, but maybe putting my own spin on it or something like that. I kind of don't want to be not myself. Like whether it's the way I dress, or I kind of like fashion and things like that. That's kind of one of my, let's say, hobbies, a way to keep creative and just kind of be myself. And in the terms of staying relevant and things like that, I think traveling has been really helpful in my freelancing career. Last year, I went to Greece, and I met up with studio owners from Athens and from Thessaloniki. And I spoke to them and had conversations, like what's different from Greece to Australia, or how do you stay creative? What's the vibe like working here, and things like that. And I try to take that sort of information and stuff into my own work as well. Like I feel like I'm heavily influenced by whether it's my Greek or Italian culture. Like I always kind of circle back to that, and I think it's important. Well, it's important for me, and I just like learning new things and taking that into my work as well as a way to stay creative and be influenced by other things other than social media and things like that. That's maybe why I haven't been so prominent on there. But when I went travelling, you know, I've started taking up photography a bit more. I did do like a Cert 4 in high school, so I have some skills. But I have been enjoying it more and more, and that's a different creative outlet other than, you know, design, which is my hobby and my work. So I think it's good to get a different perspective on things sometimes, and maybe, you know, through photography, notice things that other people don't notice, or learn things about the world that you wouldn't normally see. I think that's kind of how I maybe stay relevant. I just want to be happy with the work that I do and find that something different that maybe other people don't see.
I love that. How about for you guys with sort of leading your team through changes, but also like with your clients as well and having those conversations with them?
You're looking at me.
I'm looking at both of you.
I'm just festering on thinking about your culture and thinking I have no culture.
Lindsay's laughing the loudest.
He's like, I agree. I think change can be really scary. I think as human beings, we all don't really like, we're comfortable and it's all good. But I think the nature of our industry is it's always changing, and that's okay. And, you know, leading teams can be really hard, and change happens really slowly, particularly in a big organisation where you've got 40-something people that you have to bring along for the journey. And I think when you look back, it's really evident what's changed. In the moment, it feels like nothing's changed. So I think it's just evident. My biggest thing is, you know, it's just 1% of the time you do something with one team and then you focus on the next team, and then naturally over time, I want to hold your hand. The whole thing moves forward. So it's scary, but it's kind of just part and parcel where we work, so, and the industry we're in.
Anything you want to add?
I guess for me, it's about just asking questions, building a network and collaborating until you understand things, and, keeping up that way, I guess. But you asked about, taking the clients along for the ride. I think we've had a few examples lately where you need to tell people to just throw out what they know. Throw out what they learnt at uni or TAFE, or things are changing, and we've had that recently for a campaign where everyone was like, well, I don't think this will work. Why don't we split test it? It was a pretty easy thing to split test, and the results just spoke for themselves. That we need to let go of some of the old ways of thinking and take some of these risks, and because the landscape has changed and what people that human side of us wants to see now has changed, so that worked really well. So I think, changing, opening up your mind. Yeah.
I've got one final question before the audience can ask questions as well, but I'd love to know from each of you how your definition of success has changed. Are you where you thought you would be 5 years ago? And how has that kind of changed along the way?
You always look straight at me.
But I'm like looking at all of you. But go.
Feeling
You're the tallest. You're just there.
In response to where I am now versus where I thought I'd be, no. But I never really thought about where I was going to be. So I don't know, maybe. What was the other part of your question? I'm so bad at memorising. I think,
what success means to you,
Success.
really, and then also, for the future as well. What are you thinking in 5 years' time? Do you have a plan?
Well, clearly no.
That's
Success.
nice to hear, though.
Success to me is just, doing something that I love, coming home and feeling fulfilled and feeling like I'm helping, I guess. I just want to help people, and I think that will continue in whatever path I do. So feeling fulfilled and having, a fulfilled team around me is probably what success means. And 5 years in the future, it will be 2030.
Don't say that.
We might have a child. I don't know. Hopefully. Yeah.
So you're going to get on the roller coaster.
I'm going to get on the roller coaster. My beautiful partner really wants a baby, and I'm just like, last egg. You can have literally my last egg. Like, I'm so passionate about what I do, and like I actually think I'm at a hard point where I've built a really incredible career for myself, and I've had a really big realisation recently where I was the person asking all the questions. Now people are asking me questions, and it's freaking me out a little bit. But I think that I have always just been a bit like, ooh, laissez-faire, or whatever the expression is, and trust that things will work out. So ask me in 5 years' time, and I'm sure I'll be really proud of what I've done, but I don't know what that's going to be. Could be anything. Yeah.
Love that. Nicola made eye contact. So.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, similar really. I think personal fulfillment is definitely at the centre of my 5-year plan, but part of personal fulfillment is definitely career fulfillment. Like for me, I think it's about, I've already made huge changes to make sure that I'm doing it my way, and also the way that I feel that my family is going to enjoy this the most. Like I definitely didn't want to feel like my family were making compromises because of my career goals. So 5 years for me, 100%, I'm going to be doing this. I want my East Coast buddies to be feeling quite jealous and to be asking questions about Adelaide. That's definitely a big motivation for me. Yeah, they will. Thank you, Tat. I actually, honestly, I think that they're already kind of going, because it's, I don't know, we're just really lucky to be here. Like, I think just coming in, I feel like this is a very special place, and I feel like this is a place that is already solving a lot of the problems that I was finding quite big back on the East Coast. So, yeah, I think keeping on doing this, and also just making sure that I'm very true and honest about myself as a whole person, that I'm not hiding any of myself for career success.
Love that.
Well, yeah, I didn't think I would be here 5 years ago because I thought I'd have a stable job, but I think it's turned out for the best, really. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those things that went wrong along the way. But I think success for me at the moment is, people finding my work, and whether it's on Instagram or my website or whatever, and actually inquiring with me and, wanting to work with me, which is like pretty insane, I think. Like, oh, wow, these people actually like what I do. And, whether it's working in studios or agencies and them asking me back to return, I'm obviously doing something right, I hope. And
You are.
Thank you. And I think that, success for me is that at the moment. And I think in 5 years' time, I think a lot of life things are going to change, not career things. Like I think my career will always be there because I think that I'm good at what I do, so I will always adapt, hopefully. But, big life changes, like just getting engaged. I got to plan a wedding. I got to do all this other stuff. And when am I going to have a family? Blah, 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 and, that's 5 years now. Like, where am I going to be? I don't know. We don't know where we're going to be, but I hope it's going to be somewhere good. Yeah.
That's a very good point because, 5 years ago I got married, and so I feel like a lot has happened in that time. So then to think forward to 5 years and I don't know, so much could happen again. It's it can be really hard to say.
Yeah, but obviously you guys make it look easy, so we can take some of your advice of family and planning and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Come to our house at 8 a.m. in the morning and see how easy it looks.
8 a.m.
Perfect contraception.
And you've been up for multiple hours and you're like, how are we still not ready to leave?
Where's your drink bottle?
Yeah, how about for you, Sarah?
Look, success is hard. I was speaking to my husband about success last week because he's big on plans, goals, and I think it's hard to see the success that you've made of yourself when you're there, and because you always keep raising the bar. So it's a tricky one. 5 years ago, I don't know, I was so on that roller coaster, with a newborn and a, toddler. And I think at the time, we were still thinking 4 kids, which my son definitely put us off that. There will be no more. So I don't know. Maybe I thought at the time that I'd have at least a third by now, but no. But I don't know. In the future, to me, you know, both of my kids, my son just started, so he's my youngest, just started school in July. And so now I've got this time back to myself in some way where I can also concentrate on myself a bit, which is sad. You know, I miss having our Fridays together and things like that. But I also now it's, time for me to keep saying yes to the right things and start saying no to things that don't matter. So I think that's my plan, just work on myself and keep doing those things that scare me.
That's great. I think it'd be nice to open it up to questions now and get someone to hand around a mic as well. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask the committee? Yeah?
Hello. Is it okay if I ask a more specific question to a panel member rather than...
Ask whatever you like.
Okay. This is more for Nicola, specifically about her experience with her mentor. I just thought that whole story was so interesting to me. And I wanted to ask, what was his actual perspective that he could justify his standpoint about them being so many men and creative directors and not women? And then how did you specifically change that, or what conversation occurred for him to change his perspective?
I wish I could remember this in more detail. Look, I think he had never really thought about it, to be perfectly honest. I think he'd gone his way, he'd been very successful, he'd been primarily surrounded by men, and I think he genuinely thought that women left of their own accord. And so I think just simply going, no, there's a whole lot of other reasons that are leading to women leaving the industry. Because what I also found out when I was doing research was women weren't leaving the industry, they were simply not working for advertising agencies anymore, because there was no career progression that they could see inside ad agencies. So they were becoming freelancers, they were running really good freelance businesses, they were going client side, they were changing careers entirely, but they just weren't staying doing that. So I think for me it was just honestly going, the simple truth is it's really hard to stick around. And I think that was a moment where he went, and also actually he had 2 daughters. And I think his daughters were just about to reach the point. So I think it was just lucky timing too, that he suddenly probably saw one of his daughters standing in front of him and went, we need to think harder about this.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
First of all, you guys have done an amazing job up there, and obviously you guys have had amazing careers so far. But I guess with all that success, I kind of wanted to know if any of you have experienced any kind of imposter syndrome, with all the success that you guys have had. What has that been? And if you have experienced it, do you have any tips on how to overcome that?
Hypnotism.
It's like, yes.
Like literally, the 2 things that I spoke to him about were imposter syndrome and public speaking. So I've got another hack for you. Because that was a big thing, joining AADC in particular, and getting up and speaking, and everyone be like, "Oh, who's she? Why is she in front of us?" That was my fear, and he just said, "You need to just, people don't think about you as much as you think that they do think about you." So he just said, you just need to recognise a thought and sort of, throw it away. He said, you need a keyword. It might be no, it might be words, whatever you want. I've even thought about getting it tattooed on my self just to remind myself. Yeah, it's my quote thing, isn't it? Just no, it doesn't matter. They can think that if they want, whatever. That has no power. You're probably just building it up in your mind. And I think I've been pretty vocal when I was on the She Creates committee about wanting to do an event on imposter syndrome, because I think it's a huge issue, probably particularly for women. And so, yeah, it's something I have always struggled with, still do, but hypnotism works.
I definitely agree. I don't think that, maybe it does go away, but just, trying to sort of push it to the side and, downplay it and not letting it take up as much space, really. Yeah.
I think social media doesn't help, to be perfectly honest. I think, because it's constant, by the way, and I think everyone would agree.
The worst. Yeah.
You've always got that voice. But I think the trouble with kind of being in a real social media focused society is that you are thinking about yourself a bit too much, which is kind of, yeah, thank you, Sarah's hypnotist, true. People aren't thinking about you that much, and also people aren't doubting you that much. And I think the other thing, definitely my observation is I've always found that clients never underestimate me. They've always treated me with a lot of respect, and they've never asked, well, what's that small person doing in this room? So I think you've just got to assume that all the negative thoughts are coming from somewhere very close to you, and don't think that they're coming from further away, because they're probably not.
I think that's, sorry to just jump in, but like that's so true. Like it says more about you a lot of the time, those thoughts that you have. And if someone else is having those thoughts about you, that says more about them as well. Definitely.
So powerful, just what you said. Yeah.
Yes, I'll touch on that. It's easier said than done, but I think, yes, we all have imposter syndrome, but I think, people wouldn't come, for me specifically as a freelancer, people wouldn't come to me and ask me to do their work or whatever if I wasn't, good at something. So I think that's kind of how I see imposter syndrome. Like, oh, well, actually, maybe I am okay at what I do because people be hiring me, I guess. So, yeah, and I think talking to people around you as well is helpful. Like, is this good? Is what I did good? I mean, it's all subjective as well, designed specifically, but, if they say it's good, it makes me feel a little bit better about myself too. So, yeah, just, talk to people, just check it out. Everyone thinks that you're okay.
I heard this thing recently, and they were saying about, when you have a negative thought in your head, who's the voice that is actually saying that thought? And most of the time it's actually just your own voice. And then when you think critically, no one's ever said those words to you. No one's ever kind of like made you feel like that. So like, fuck 'em, like you're all good. And like, to your point, I think you're in that role for a reason. You're being asked to do something for a reason. Just stop listening and it's okay. So yeah.
Sounds like a quote.
Yeah. We should print some t-shirts.
Anybody else has a question? Oh, we're off there.
Another one here in the middle.
Oh, no, new one yet. We'll come back to you.
Go, Danny.
Hello. I think that all of you are amazing at what you do, and you do it, in like same but diverse ways. What are some things that each of you do to kind of like keep growing and improving from where you're at like all the different levels that you're at, I suppose, and like habits that you create maybe to make sure that you're getting that kind of like, I don't know, whether it's feedback or just like growth, so that you keep developing yourself, whether that's personally, whether as a manager, as a creative.
Okay,
You go.
I think with freelance, it's difficult to know, how you're growing because you don't have any ladders to climb, or no one's promoting you for doing things, or whatever it may be in a normal office situation. But I think maybe for freelancing specifically, it's the types of clients I'm getting, whether it's bigger projects or bigger clients and things like that. It's not just, someone just asking for a singular logo. It might be a whole branding project, and, you're following it through to art direction and whatever. I think that's maybe how I see myself, how I see growth for me. Sorry. And, I think that's specifically for freelancing at least. Yeah.
I think I've always sought out something outside of Simple. I love Simple. I've made a decision to stay there clearly for a really long time. I think for me, my growth has come from outside perspective, doing outside things. So AEDC has been a really big part of my life for also 8 years. And I've learned so much through that. She Creates came through that. I'm doing a course thing, I don't know what to call it at the moment. I started with the beautiful Tracy over there. She can attest. It's not so much a course, it's more of a, I don't know how to describe it. It's just women kind of getting up and sharing their stories. Chatham House rules. They are in crazy positions. They have led crazy careers and they just share. So from that, I've learned so much. And I think through the club, I walked into the awards this year and I said, I'm not going to get wasted and I'm not going to shake any hands at 4 o'clock in the morning and to commit to being on a committee again next year. And I didn't do that. So I'm very proud of myself. But I think
we should have spiked her
career
drink.
highlight. But I think for me now it's, where does that time and energy that I have given over the last 8 years go? And I think for me now I'm looking at, well, what do I do next? And I know Lindsay is kind of like, spend time with me. But but I think for me it's about, what can I do next? I want to learn, things in business. What does that look like? So I think it's just, surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be around, but also finding external voices to help you along that journey, particularly in a position like me where so many people I've, met over the course of my time at Simple, but ultimately I spend so much time with these people, we know each other intimately, and you need outside voices and perspectives. So growth comes through, just seeking external help.
We definitely can both attest to that as well, those external voices and being part of committees. I also started working, I can't remember if it was this year or last, I think it was this year, starting working with a business coach as well. A friend at work had started working with the same person, and I really saw how she had evolved and grown and was able to communicate a message really clearly, and things just were clicking for her. So that sort of felt like a decision that I wanted to make of where to from here. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do career-wise and wanted to speak to someone about it, and that's been really great to kind of have those conversations, and she helps me sort of organise my thoughts in a way, which has been really good.
This might make me sound old, but I think listening to people younger than me, I think there's a tendency to think that you need to kind of look to people who are more senior than you to sort of for inspiration and advice. And I've talked about my 80-year-old, to be fair. But I think conversely, I had an experience a few years ago where there was no social creative director at my office. And so I spontaneously went, I'll be the social creative director. And I knew nothing about social. And so what I did was basically there was a whole bunch of really smart people in their 20s. And I went, I'm going to be honest, I'm good at being a creative director, but I know nothing about social. And so you're going to have to teach me. And them just coming to me, and every week we'd talk about what they'd found and what they thought was interesting and trends and what was cool and what they thought was good design. And that taught me a hell of a lot. So I think sometimes too, it's not necessarily experience, it's more to do with just kind of listening to people who have very different experiences to your own.
Yeah, on that, I was thinking along the same lines. Recently I was speaking to a client, and I don't know how we got into the conversation of his wife, but he was talking about how she was a scientist and looking for, a new role, and she wanted to do something more creative, but she was a scientist, so she probably wasn't going to end up in our industry necessarily. But he said, would you speak to her? And I was like, sure, but I don't know what I can offer. But we had the best chat, and we both learnt so much from each other. Who would have thought that, either of us would get that much out of a conversation with each other, but we really did. So I think you find that mentorship where you least expect it. And I've had the same with, students as well, where you speak to them and you're like, oh, I've never thought of it from that perspective as well. So don't just look at the people above you who you look up to.
I love that. I think we might end it there because then we've got a little bit more time to chat after this. So if you've got any more questions, please come and chat to the panel. But thank you for all being so generous and sharing your stories tonight. I've loved understanding a little bit more about all your different journeys, challenges and wins along the way. And I think these conversations get us all thinking and help give us the tools on our own journeys too. And really what I've loved most about each of the different stories is how there's always a thread that connects us all. And I think that's what She Creates is really about, that connection, honesty and support. We've always existed for those things, so open, honest and supportive conversations. So thank you to our panellists and to our sponsors and to all of you, a part of our community, for being here tonight. I hope you have enjoyed tonight and also the last 5 years of She Creates and all those events that we've put along the way. To celebrate the milestone, we've got a cake, of course, because that's just what you do, that we'll be sharing after this, so please stick around, and drinks can also be purchased from the bar. This will be our last She Creates event for 2025, but as part of the AADC, there will also be Christmas drinks at Mismatch Brewing on the 4th of December that you're all welcome to attend. If you're a She Creates or an AADC member, that one is free. Is that right? Yep, great. Otherwise, you can also purchase a ticket online. But yeah, thank you again, everyone, and let's have some cake.
Thanks, Liz.